All right, so we're welcoming back our good friend, Dr. Jude LaClaire, who is no stranger to our community. So we want to welcome you back this morning, Dr. Jude. So nice to have you. The title of her talk is going to be Aging Exuberantly. A little bit about Dr. Jude. Of course, she brings over 50 years of experience as a mental health counselor, author, and educator. She's published a Life Weaving Education Curriculum, which is a holistic problem-solving curriculum, and she writes a monthly mental health article for Evolving Magazine. And Dr. Jude, she enjoys walking and working as a counselor and being active in social justice action, which that enough alone is to keep you busy for a lifetime. So we want to welcome you on this morning, Dr. Jude. As a community, we certainly are glad that you are joining us today, and we look forward to your inspiring words. So without further ado, Dr. Jude, take it away.
Well, thank you, Dan. Good morning, everybody. So yes, the title of my thing talking about today is The Art of Living Exuberantly. So I didn't make that up. I'll tell you where I got it. So I'm just going to say a funny thing happened to me on the way to this talk. As usual, I spend a lot of time thinking about looking around, searching for a timely topic. So this for me, and perhaps for many of you, has been a year of loss. My family prematurely lost my 50-year-old nephew. One of my clients that I'd been working with off and on since age 35 died of an accidental drowning at age 55. 5 of my Buddhist colleagues, some of whom I knew for 50 years, went to their next life, and I might say many of them younger than myself. 3 of my convent class left us, and I would have to say that I myself feel the vagaries of aging. So I was thinking of grief and loss as a topic, not exactly always uplifting. And however, on a spontaneous trip to Rainy Day Books, always dangerous, I saw it's around, by the way. It's still in Fairway, and actually she just sold it to a group of people who are committed to continuing the Rainy Day Book tradition with speakers and so on. So it's still around with us. So I go into Rainy Day Books. I live close to it. And I saw this book, The Swedish Art of Aging Exuberantly. And I thought, okay, Jude, I think maybe you need to rethink what you're going to talk about. Maybe you need to think about exuberance. So the author of this book is also the author of The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning, which was on the New York Times best-selling list. Margareta Magnusson, who is an artist and a person who is now, I think, 86. And on the front of her book, she says, life wisdom from someone who will, in parentheses, probably into parentheses, die before you. So she has a great sense of humor. And I thought, okay, Jude, this is it. I'm gonna think more humorously, maybe even exuberantly, at the changes life throws at us. Because I'm thinking, okay, I'm getting through this year. I'm getting through. I call it the year of the eyes because I've had a lot of eye stuff. But I'm okay. I'm fine. But I'm treating beginnings of glaucoma and the forerunner of it's called dry macular degeneration. I'm learning more than I knew about eyes. And anyway, I'm fine. I'm doing well. I'm but it's been, how it goes. Appointments, right? I was like, what is this? What is this? So I'm going exuberance. That's a whole new way to think about any part of our lives, right? Am I really facing this more exuberantly? And then a friend mentioned another book when I told her about what I was thinking about, and it's called Growing Bolder. Defy the Cult of Youth, Live with Passion and Purpose by Mark Middleton. So 2 words stand out for me, exuberance and bolder. Okay, I'm not sure I'm really exuberant and bold, right? So, I'm doing my thing here. I'm getting through it. I'm trying to do what I do, but I don't know about exuberance and boldness. So I thought this is good. It's not getting curiouser and curiouser. Then the winter 2023 St. Luke's Cardiovascular Consultants newsletter arrived in the mail with the title article, "Is Retirement Stressful for Your Heart?" Followed by all other articles on healthy ways of aging and living healthily. Both Mark Middleton is in his 50s and the guy that wrote the article for St. Luke's is in his 50s. So I think people of all ages, my 20 and 30 and 40 somethings, are all questioning, what am I doing here? What is my purpose? How can I be happy? How can I be healthy? Right. And already looking at this process. So I don't think it's just older people. I think it's people of any age. In fact, I think some of the younger folks are even more stressed about the idea of aging growing up in this time. So I think it's a timely thing for all of us to look at. So I know that you may be looking at ways of living your life filled with challenges in what I would think of as now as a more exuberant and humorous way. So Mark Middleton, who's the man who wrote the Growing Bolder, is a man in his 50s who left a successful career in broadcasting to rethink his idea of aging. So one of his main themes is that we live in a culture that is ageist, that is basically, it's in our society, it's in our media, it's in the private and governmental forces. And he says it, quote, wants us to feel worn, weak, and worthless, end quote, giving, quote, disinformation and despair, unquote, and cultural brainwashing. And as I began to read some of his thoughts, I thought, wow, we are really in a soup of this. We have to be young, beautiful, wealthy, whatever, da, 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 da. And I see my young people struggling with it because nobody fits that paradigm. And especially, of course, as we age, we fit it less and less. So I think, again, I want to stress that it's not just older people. I think everyone is in this soup, okay? This soup of brainwashing, cultural brainwashing of ageism, that anything past maybe your 20s, it's the end and the doom for you. You don't fit in. Something's wrong with you. Some of my young clients are, oh, I have friends and they're getting Botox. It's like, what? It's like they're so afraid they're not going to be good enough, beautiful enough, thin enough, this enough, that enough, right? So I think that it's there for all of us, and it isn't just those of us that are getting older, although I have to say, as an older person, that I realized that I was probably sucking this in and it was coming into my brain and my body more than I was acknowledging as I thought about this. And I was rethinking, of course, as I began kind of reading some of these ideas and thinking about this, going, wow, I think maybe I have. Like I go to yet another funeral and they're going, oh, everybody's there like retired. I'm going, well, when are you retiring? Well, I'm not retiring. Well, I was just tired of my work. I'm done with my work. And I'm going, and I'm moving here and I'm moving there. And I'm going, oh, geez. All of a sudden, I'm starting to feel like I'm out of sync with my colleagues and my peers, like somehow I'm some kind of crazy person who's still working, right? And now I'm not thinking that. I was like, oh, no, Jude, that was silly. That was a dumb way to think about it. That's you taking on, right, other people's ideas. So let's think about this. So he reiterated this, Mark, Middleton, which this, reiterated the idea that retirement is an outdated concept. And you may know where it came from in the US. It originated around 1935, and when Roosevelt and they now then federalized the Social Security. Okay, so think about this. At that time, the average life expectancy of white males was around 65. Okay. And most of them were doing some form of manual labor. That is not true today. So he gives us, this is the statistic that he talks about. He says, for over 300,000 years of humans being on this planet, the life expectancy was 19. In 1900, it was 49. And only 122,000 people were 85 or older. So that was in 1900. My dad was born in 1901. By 2020, it is projected there will be 20 million people 85 or older. One study that I think 2050, I think. Okay, one study says 1/2 of today's 5-year-olds will live to be 100. So times have changed, but what about our philosophy, our values, and our way of living and our economy? That has not changed, has it? I mean, I see people, I'm going to retire at 50. Well, it's like, great, if you have the money to do that, that's wonderful. But here's the thing we have to remember, and I will just give you another fact. So one study, this was in the St. Luke's newsletter, one study by Oregon State University researchers followed 3,000 people for 18 years to know when they retired, and then correlated that with how their health fared. Compared with people who retired at age 67 to those retiring at 65, they found a 21% lower risk of dying. Age 70 retiring 44% lower, and age 72, 56% lower. There are longevity benefits of delaying the use it or lose it. So, and also they went on to say that we know this, new retirees are at risk for mood problems like depression or anxiety. So whatever age we are and whatever we do as we age, we have to have, I believe, this is reiterated over and over, one, you know this, a sense of purpose, a sense of meaning. When people lose their jobs, even very highly self-confident people, within weeks, they've lost their confidence, they feel hopeless often, and they have lost their sense of purpose. Okay, so purpose is absolutely key for everybody of any age, right? So we also need social connection. And a lot of the people that I talked to went to, virtual during COVID. A lot of them now are doing hybrid, where they're part in-person, part, virtual. So I would have to say the majority of people, I've looked at various studies, the majority of people seem to like hybrid, or they're at home maybe 2 days a week, at the office 3 or something like that. So they're having that connection with other people, that social connection, that in-person connection, and they're also having the flexibility of working at home and flexibility of hours and so on. So I think that COVID, if we can say it had its good side, gave us this, right? I get to do, if people can't come in person, I can do virtual. If they're sick, if they live at a distance, if, they don't have a car, whatever it is, we can do virtual. But I also am back to probably about 80% in person. There are those, like I said, it's good to have it in your toolbox. Okay. So I think my Buddhist group is still doing, we're meeting by Zoom as well. So I'm going to go on with that. So the other thing work gives you, and some of you know this, and I hear young people talking about this all the time. Unfortunately, medical insurance is tied to employment until you're 65 or you have Medicaid. So that's really ridiculous. I know you all probably know that, and that we should do something differently about that, but we're not. The other thing is, like, a lot of people, and many of the boomers and a lot of the Xers and millennials, have no savings. So they don't have the financial security to retire either. Okay. So we've got to think about not only our sense of purpose, number one, our sense of connection with people, but also our financial security and having some kind of good medical care, right? So those things are extremely important. So Dr. O'Keefe, who's a cardiologist at St. Luke's, in his article says, I have always been grateful to be in a profession that heals, and I enjoy my work more than ever. He's in his late 50s. I feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to do. Why retire? I have a recent friend who just retired from a career as an MD in a large hospital to begin offering medical services to people in their homes. And she's really enjoying that a lot. Another friend went from being a psychiatrist to being a life coach, doing training for medical professionals. So finding purpose and meaning in what you're doing is obviously something very, very important. So, and what I found what they're doing is shifting their skills into a different mode of delivery or changing completely. So no matter what age you are, it's like if you need, I find young people, they graduate from college and I graduate IT, but I don't want to do IT. I want to be a counselor. In fact, I have a client who just told me that. So it's like, okay, so you go through college, you don't maybe really know yet what you want to do. You have a major and then you don't want to do that. So what do? You got to retool. So it's not just, 65-year-olds, 70-year-olds, or 81-year-olds, right? that are thinking about repurposing, retooling, reimagining, and recreating. How many times in your life have any of you done that? Probably a lot, right? It's something we do time and time and time again. I see it with my 20s people. I see it with my 30s. Again, people in their 40s with their parents aging, their grown children, 50s. Every age, every decade, every level of development, that's what we're doing, isn't it? Rethinking, reimagining. So we can do this, let's be exuberant and bold as we rethink and we reimagine, right? So we want to find a channel for our skills and our interests and finding purpose and meaning in what satisfies and stimulates you, right? So think about this. We, all of us are a cohort, I think, changing human history. I'm not going to live it as my parents lived it. My daughter is not going to live it as I live it because we are rapidly. I think that statistic that Mark Middleton talks about, 300,000 years humans lived a particular way, almost very similarly, right? And now, because of longevity and a lot of the other changes in our society, the ball game has changed, has it not? So how do we find that? Again, I'm going to go back to the two words I'm really liking: exuberance and boldness. Okay, whatever age we are, I try to work with my 20-somethings or my 30-somethings with the same thing because they're feeling overwhelmed. Come on, let's get bold. Let's get exuberant. Let's wake up to what we need to do. You can do this, okay? You know what? I think there's a book, I haven't read it yet. It's called Make Your Bed, right? Get up, make your bed, eat your breakfast, right? Right. And I'm telling everybody the same thing: get exercise, get good sleep, eat nutritiously, have social connections, right? All right. It's the same message for anybody, whether they're, I don't work with younger people now, but, whatever, teens, 20s, 30s, 60s, 80s, 90s, right? Same thing. Same thing. So this isn't just a message for those of us that are aging. So how are we, as some of us are a bit older, 40s, 50s, 60s, and on up, myself in my 80s, how are we going to be that cohort that changes history? What are we going to do? So he says, a lot of the different authors talk about we can't be constrained by thinking about our lives in linear ways. And what does that mean? That at any stage of my life, I'm still thinking about the same ways that you're healthy. Okay, and it doesn't change when you're 15 or when you're 80, right? So if we don't have age-related rules as to what's possible and acceptable at any stage of our lives, it's like we're thinking about it differently. Let's just think about living our lives with passion, purpose, and possibility. Whether you're 18, whether you're 25, whether you're 85, okay? my sister-in-law's mother is turning 105 in April. She just went into assisted living. So, some of us aren't as lucky. I'm sure she's probably thinks that she's probably a little bit ready for the end of this. The other thing, as we have, y'all know this as well, because I know you read and you're up on things. But when you look at the United States, you look at Europe, you look at China, Japan, what is the statistic? Aging population and fewer young people. This last week, the statistic came out that China now is at the, less births and fewer deaths and no births, right? No kids. So we're in the same predicament. We have fewer younger people and more older people. So it's not economically sustainable for young people to support economically those who are older. Okay, so I just think as we think about ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, if we have them, I don't, but some of you do, how can we live healthier lives and mentally and physically healthy because we're aging and we're living longer? So obviously not everybody can have that gift of health, mental and physical health, and through no fault of their own, right? We do know, however, that good, healthy lifestyles help us have healthier hearts, less diabetes, less high blood pressure, less high cholesterol. We know that lifestyle really contributes to a lot of those diseases, mental and physical, okay? So I think that some of us are very lucky that we don't have to worry about food and shelter, but there are people who do, as you well know. For them to say get 3 healthy meals a day is not as easy as it sounds, is it? It's not. In the food deserts of our own cities, like Kansas City, it's not as easy, is it, to find healthy food, to find vegetables, to find fruit, right? So this is something that those of us who have, and I know that all of you are very socially aware, it's like to think about how other people can have what we have, right? How to make that more accessible, medical care more accessible, healthy food more accessible, being safety at work, living wages, right? Because if we don't have healthy young people, we're going to not have healthy older people, are we? So if people do live longer, it doesn't mean they live better, does it? Not necessarily. So, and sometimes, let's just be real clear. I have a very good friend that I'm going to go see in March, who I was in a convent with. I've known her for 60 years. Her husband was a professor. He's retired, but he was still very highly engaged. He has dementia. He's my age. And he's at home with her now, but she knows that it's coming to a place when perhaps she cannot take care of him. She's needing help now, and she's getting help to take care of him. They live, I would say, pretty healthy lives. And, no one can help it if their brain or their body gives up, right? Like, you just can't. And I'm not never saying, oh, if you live healthy lives, these things won't happen. No, they may. Cancers and so on, heart disease, so on. But if we do live more healthily and more mindfully, of course, we're going to be healthier, right? Okay. And we can help others also to do that. So I just think that I like it. And, the guy wrote, Going Bolder, quoted Charles Dickens, which I'm sure you probably thought of a lot in the last few years. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the spring of hope. It was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us. So I think our question is, how can we have the best, sometimes facing the worst, imagining challenges with a different state of mind, okay? So Margarita, in the Aging Exuberantly book, which I found, she's very humorous, she's very funny, said, if you can find a way to make aging itself an art, and where you are creative in how you approach each day, perhaps it can be a little easier. And she suggests a number of things to help us do this. So, you know, when I picked up the book, this kind of caught my eye immediately. Number one, have a gin and tonic with a friend, which of course you say, you know, you may or may not drink. The point is, how are you connecting? How are you keeping in touch? Your socialization, your peers. She talks about finding old friends, making new ones. And I would have to say, you know, I was sort of in the last year or so lamenting, well, I have no colleagues. Where are they? Well, they're retired, they've died, they have dementia, they're not here. I don't have anybody. Who do I talk to? So then, you know, I kind of made a commitment that I needed to start reaching out, which I am an introvert, hard to believe, I know, but I am. And I don't reach out easily. And so I decided to call this person that had worked with me on my curriculum, and I'd done a pilot study at the school where she was principal, and I called her. She lives actually fairly close to me. I said, how would you like to go to lunch? Oh, fine, great, that'll be fun. We went to lunch, had a great time. We are going to do it again, right? Wonderful person. And then I decided I was going to go to the writing conference at the Johnson County Library. And they have it every year. Some of you may know that. They have it every year. It's free, by the way. Anybody can go to it. And they had people from all over the country in person and also by, you know, Zoom giving lectures. And it was actually very, very good. And of course, right before I'm going, oh, I'm not going to go. They're focusing on fiction. I'm not a fiction writer. I'm a nonfiction writer. And I thought, you know, you're getting your ass over there. So just forget it. You're going. So I did go. And it was wonderful. I met some interesting people. It really tickled my creative brain and really kind of reminded me of a lot of the training that I've had in writing. Plus, there were just such interesting speakers. I went to a really good one that you would probably enjoy. And I believe she has a book. She's an English professor in the East Coast. And she did which was, I have to say, it was one of the most popular ones of the conference. Young and old people were there. How to write a memoir focusing on transformative moments of our lives. And boy, that was really kind of moving for everyone that was there to think about your life as not a linear progression of the history, but a whole collection of transformative experiences. And that idea was just kind of, for all of us, was like, woo, that just went to the depth of us, like thinking about transformative experiences of your life. I mean, I can't remember half of what went on yesterday. But I can remember my first grade teacher, and I can remember my sixth grade teacher, and I can remember certain things that happened to me as a child or as a young person. And these are the transformative events, right? That shaped us, that somehow stay in our being, right? Okay. So I think that was really helpful. And the other thing, I was sitting next to this person, and she said, oh, you know, she started talking to me. I think she was a little more extroverted. She initiated the conversation. And how are you? And, you know, what do you do? And it turns out she was a psychiatrist, and she practices in Long Island, although she's doing it virtually from here. She is a native of India who's a practicing Muslim. And she says to me, here's my information, my contact information. Why don't, you know, and she gave me her phone number and her email. And I thought, oh, that's, you know, okay. And then about 2 months out, you know, just about, I guess a month ago, she emails me and says, let's get together for lunch. Okay. So I mean, she's 50 years old, so she's not my colleague in that sense, but she's this really bright, wonderful, amazing woman who's, you know, very diverse in her own background and very interesting. And she's reaching out to me. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. You know, that's really nice. So then we're actually having lunch again on Monday. And she wants me to come to her house because she has 2 kids that are in their 20s, and she wants me to meet them. So I'm going, okay, you know, But my point is that if you find that you have a hole in whatever it is you do, it's like take that action, right? Whatever that action is going to be, find a way to make those friends, new friends, old friends, new colleagues, old colleagues, whatever, right? And connect. I think COVID really put a cap for all of us on our kind of being more reclusive or kind of hanging out alone. But I think if anything, it made us desire to want not to do that so much. And as we are coming out of it, I see people of all ages going, oh, wow, I want to have friends. My 20s, I'm inviting my friends over. We're going to have dinner together on Sunday and everybody's bringing something, right? So it's people of all ages. That's my point here, okay? That connectiveness that we need and that Marguerite is talking about. So another thing that she talks about, she said that the title of the chapter is "The World is Always Ending." So, it's like sort of like that doomsday thing. And she said, yeah, my parents had the Spanish flu, 2 wars, we've had the Cold Wars and the Vietnam War and all, and now COVID. So what she's talking about is that we can have, I like it. She says, we can endure, or we sometimes go through what she calls extreme horrors that can exist simultaneously with the simple joys of life. So, I mean, I listen to, and I'm sure you have too, listened to so many people that are Holocaust survivors talking about their experiences of how they survived. Well, how did they that's exactly how they survived, wasn't it? They were in a horrific experience, but they found some way to have the simple joys of connection or love or doing something. Some of them were projects where they did sewing, some were doing music, some were just helping other people, talking to each other about those they loved. They were doing something that gave them joy in the midst of the horror, okay? So I think that in the midst of these, trying things, and I think COVID was certainly trying for everyone of any age, right? Certainly the cultural things that are going on in our society are horrors. I don't think we can use any other word for it. I am not going to watch the video of the policeman beating up on that young man. I don't want to see it. I know it's there. I just know it's a reality, but I can't do it. So, but I'm not going to be, I think I acknowledge the horrors. We're not going to say the pain, the difficulties, the challenges. That's not the point, right? And some of us, whether we're old or young, may face, I have young people, I have a 20-something young woman who was very abused as a child, did not have proper medical care, and has all kinds of medical issues and chronic pain, like an older person. But she has to deal with it, and she's learning how to heal, and she's learning how to take care of herself. So it isn't just older people that have to face pain or sickness or poverty or whatever, right? Abusiveness, etc. So how do you face the horror, pay attention to it, but we don't want to live in it. We don't want to dwell in it. We don't make it a stopping place, right? And we find, what are the simple joys? Think of your life. It's like just getting up in the morning and saying, wow, the sun is out. Or, today I get to go walk the dogs again, right? Whatever, eat breakfast with my lovely spouse. That's something that we love and enjoy. The daily rituals that you do. Do you have daily rituals that you enjoy, whether it's by yourself or with someone else? Okay. Those are the simple things of life that as we think about the horrors, the hard things, I try to limit the amount of time that I watch the news. Because it's again, like it's kind of a brainwashing. We go over and over again, repeating oftentimes the most negative aspects of what's going on in our society. And it's like, we need to be aware but I don't want to swim in them. I don't want to make them my home, right? I want to find some way to stay in that positive mode so that I can be effective, right? If I'm dragged down by my fear, by my pain, by the pain of others, what can I do? What does that do to you? Right? I know what it does to me. It paralyzes me. It immobilizes me. So I do think her idea that we have to find some way of finding how really that horrors and joys can simultaneously exist. And it's sort of, what does she say? Live for now, prepare for the future. So living this moment well is preparing for the future. Okay. So how we can do that. So she also says our brushes with mortality, which I think whether it's somebody else's death or our own, or our own near-death experiences or those we love. When a friend of mine told me, and I know that some of you have experienced this, that, those of us that are older have experienced issues with our children. They've been ill. Some have died. And one of my friends said, I can't believe how many funerals I've been to for the children of my friends, and she's in her 70s. And it's like, no, but it happens. We all know it happens, and we can't stop it from happening. It's a horror. There's no way to say that it's not. But the fact is, that one of my colleagues that just died, that was a Buddhist, was 66. He had kidney disease. He was this amazing, amazing man. And his father was there, who was, 84. And he said a father shouldn't have to bury his son. Well, no. And he suffered, Art suffered a lot. But the point is, our mortality, the mortality of others, kind of says to us, let's face loss and learn how to know that this is part of life, and that we can help each other, we can be with each other, we can support each other, right, through this. I think I have one of my clients is studying to be a death doula, and so she's really immersing herself in this whole idea that we are a culture that basically fears and demonizes death as if it were something unnatural, which is kind of what, the Growing Bolder talks about. It's that ageist idea that somehow it's like death is part of life. And yet we've come to make it so onerous that nobody knows how to deal with it very well. Okay. So I think we're hopefully, trying to find some ways to make it a part of our lives that we can deal with and learn how to deal with a bit more healthily, right? It's hard. Of course it's hard. Of course it is. So the other thing she says, and goes on, I'm just going to go through this. She says, keeping engaged physically, mentally, emotionally, purposefully. We all know this. With the generosity of spirit keeps us so much healthier. So whether we're in a paid position or a volunteer or having a hobby, that we stay engaged, right? And I think that's true for young people as well. They need something besides going to their work. They need a hobby. They need friends. They need engagement, right? Okay. So some of them have jobs that don't really give them a great deal of purpose, but maybe in their, that I have one young woman that goes to a cat shelter every Saturday. And she spends Saturday taking care of these orphaned cats. So, finding something that gives your life a sense of meaning or purpose, whatever the age, right? And that you're finding something that helps you stay engaged and basically enjoying more of your life. The other thing, I love it, she says, take care of your hair if you have any. Okay. So you think about our changing bodies, right? The last couple of years, I've lost 2 inches, and I'm like, oh shit, I was already so short. Now I'm even shorter. But fortunately, I've lost some weight to go with it, not by any purpose. It just sort of happened like, oh, well, I lost some inches. Now I'm losing some weight. Okay, whatever. I'm smaller in stature. I'm smaller in size. What the heck? I'm still mobiling around pretty well, so I'm not going to worry about it. My eyes aren't as great as I'd like them to be, but I can still read. I can do everything I want to do. So I'm working on keeping them healthy. So anyway, I think that take care of your hair if you have any. We're changing, our bodies are changing. I think about my young people who are worried that this is happening and that's happening. But we know as we get older that we know our bodies tell us we're aging, right? I can't open bottles very well, and especially if I'm out and they have like bottled water or something, I can't open them. So I just have to ask a younger person to do it for me because I have arthritis and my hands just don't work in the same way they used to. I don't have the grip in my hands much anymore. But hey, I think learning to ask for help is okay, right? And they always enjoy doing things for me anyway. So what the heck, right? So she suggests maybe being okay with some of our physical shifts, finding something that makes you laugh. And then she says, which I love, make laugh wrinkles, not worry ones. Okay. And I think, oh yeah, that's a good idea. And y'all know the research on this, that even a fake smile can change your brain chemistry, right? Even a fake laugh can change your brain chemistry in a positive direction. So fake it till you make it is sometimes a good idea. Okay. So sometimes even if you don't feel like it, it's like, okay, I'm going to do that. And they're like, okay, fine. You know, I mean, I don't know if I haven't been a laugh yoga or whatever it is, but you know, I thought, oh my God, that just sounds so terrible to make yourself do fake laughing. But it helps you feel better. I haven't done it, by the way, but have any of you done it? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about, right? You've probably heard of it. But anyway, it works. That's why. Okay. So I think saying make laugh wrinkles, not worry ones is probably good advice. Okay. So then she says, spend time with younger people. And so I think what are the two times that we feel the best and when we act younger and happier? When we're the children or animals, right? We regress to about 5 years old. We start talking baby talk and whatever. And I think that being with younger people, I have people in my office, they're young to me, they're 2 in their 40s, 1 in their 50s. And I mean, I love being around people that are younger than myself. And they kind of like it that I'm older, and they joke with me about it. And you know, they can't believe that I'm still doing all these things. So that's good. I get encouragement from these younger people. Oh my God, you're amazing. I'm like, really? Okay, that's really cool that you think that, right? So it's kind of fun. So I think being with younger people, whatever the age, right? And also I'm going to throw in there, be with animals too, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So be a mentor, be a model, just be with them and play with them. Find ways to be playful and young. I always sometimes jokingly say, I probably have said this to you, this isn't my second childhood. I never had a first. And I think it wasn't that I had such an unhappy life, but I was raised in a generation where little children are seen and not heard. And we were supposed to be very serious and very responsible and very polite and very this and very that. And my mother, you start playing and they go, oh, somebody's going to break a leg. You're going to poke an eye out. Stop that. No noise. No, it's like, no, don't be loud. Stop. So we really weren't encouraged to do that. Sometimes I find myself with younger, very little ones, like, oh, they're saying, wow, we never got to do that, Okay, be with young people, be with a dog, be with a cat. So I like this one. Don't fall over. Another practical tips to aging. So basically she's saying kind of whether it's your physical self falling over, which balance is a big issue we know as we age, right? I try to put my pants on one leg at a time and kind of stand there and try to balance. I say if you can balance for 7 seconds, you have a hedge on Alzheimer's. Did you know that? Balance for 7 seconds on one leg, right? So practice balancing on one leg. As you age, it's not the easiest thing to do, I can assure you. So, but also she talks about this too, which is great. We want balance in all spheres of our life. And that if we need help or you know, sometimes I do need help. Sometimes you may need help. I used to, you know, as a younger, especially feminist, I would like, I don't open the door for me. I'll open the door for myself. And now when these people, young people, whoever, open the door, hold the door, I say, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. You know, or you want to, if I can't reach the top shelf or I have a heavy package and somebody wants to help me, hey, fine, go for it, right? I'm gonna take help. I'm gonna be grateful for help, and I may even ask for help, which I don't do very well either. But it's okay, because guess what asking for help does for the other person? It makes them feel better about themselves. Oh, wow, you know, so he needed that, and I helped them, right? So balance, finding ways to ask for help, give help, be grateful for help. Take care of one thing each day. That's sort of like make your bed or take care of. She says, I don't have any animals anymore, no children, and I water my plants, right? So whatever you're doing, whatever you're taking care of, you know, maybe it is just watering a plant. We know that people that have animals like cats or dogs live longer and have healthier hearts, have less, you know, chance of stroke and diabetes and high blood pressure and all that, right? So even though sometimes when I like the, you know, like last night when it was 24 degrees, or I haven't been out this morning, I didn't walk the dogs this morning because of this. But, you know, when you're out there and it's 15 and you're walking the dogs, it's like, are you kidding me? But I'm trying to get my 8,000 steps a day. And now I have my Apple Watch to tell me whether I've done it or whether I have not done it. So anyway, pets help us taking care of something, whether we're old or young. It's one of the things I keep telling my younger people: exercise 20 minutes once a day, 150 minutes a week, out in the sunshine, out, even if it's a gloomy day, you still get stuff from the sun. Be outside, nature, walk. Okay, so take care of one thing each day. Then she says sometimes something painful or hard can be something dear or cherished. She used the Swedish word for it, you know, that's sort of like, and I think about some of my brother, and I have an older client that have walkers, and they're going, oh my God, and they're showing me all the features of the walker, and they're telling me how fast they can walk and how they can practically run down the street with their walkers. Well, this is pretty cool, right? They're kind of in their little speedster walkers. You know, well, that's really kind of neat that they're doing that, because who wants to have a walker? But it's like, okay, then it's all right. Make lemonade. What is it? Make lemonade out of lemons. So if you think about something that is, you know, I think about some of the people that I admire, like Stephen Hawking, for example. I mean, he had ALS from the time he would think it's late 20s. And he died in his 70s, late 70s, 78, something like that. And he was down to one finger could move, and he had the voice synthesizer. But I mean, he had fun with it. And he said, I would never have contributed in the way that I did if I had not had this disease. So I think, you know, that's a really big issue about how you do that. Norman Lehrer, who just turned 100, and some of you may have seen it, they had a 100th birthday party thing for him on television, I really like him. And of course, I liked a lot of his shows. His parents and grandparents were Russian Jews, and he had a pretty abusive childhood and fairly neglectful and pretty emotionally disturbing. And a lot of his creations and his shows came out of his experience as a child. He said, all in the family were characters in my family. So, you know, I look at people like that. Barbara Walters, you know, who just passed away, you know, was telling us that, they said that woman would do the best interview in the world, and then she'd get done with it and say, oh my God, I could have done that. I should have asked this question. And what about that question? She over prepared. She would, by her own admission, she would say, I sometimes spend weeks deciding the order of my questions for the interviews. So she was I wouldn't say perfectionistic, but she was very assiduous, sometimes didn't have confidence. But what did she do? She made something really wonderful out of it, didn't she? Right? So sometimes our biggest tragic flaw becomes our greatest asset. and vice versa, right? So I think that's a good one. I like this one. Wear stripes. So she's talking about, the things that she liked, this colored dress or that thing or the stripy thing. I remember as kids, there would grow up in the era when they had striped t-shirts. I remember that. But anyway, it's like do something that makes you happy, that gives you joy, right? It's sort of like the book that came out when I'm old, I shall wear purple. Actually, the one woman wrote that. I think she was actually in her 30s when she wrote that book. So, but wear stripes. Do something that brings you joy. So I would just say to you, since birth is the cause of death, we're all aging. So Ayn Rand says this, a quote, "Do not let your spark go out. Spark by irreplaceable spark in the hopeless swamp of the not quite, the not yet, and the not at all. The world you desired can be won. It exists. It is real. It is possible. It's yours." So I would just throw the challenge out to you. How can you be bolder? Learning how to take risks at any age, and then kind of imagining or reimagining and then creating what's going to be next in your life. Okay? Not easy, but it's like one thing at a time, isn't it? So I think growing bolder, taking risks, reimagining and imagining and recreating. Okay? That's how we kind of do each step of our lives, whatever age we might be, right? So anyway, that's my thought for today. So I thought, why don't we do a little meditation? All right, so it might be helpful just to close your eyes. Take a nice deep breath and relax. Just feel that breath going down into your diaphragm. Just feeling your body getting calmer and more relaxed. Your body giving into gravity. If your body is warm and relaxed, your mind is alert and awake. And then just begin to think a little bit about, are there anything in particular that you think of right now in your life that could be blocking you or stopping you? Maybe some message you give yourself inadvertently that you're not aware of that's stopping you from doing something that you want to do or be or say. It doesn't mean a big thing necessarily, but something that's blocking you, stopping you. And what mental blocks or what is it that you're telling yourself about that? Am I not good enough? I don't know how to do that. I don't have support, blah, blah, blah. What are the things that you tell yourself about that block, about that stopping yourself? I want you to think about what that might be. Just take a moment to think about what that might be. And then I want you to take another moment. I want you to imagine without judgment, without any preconceived notions, something bold, fun, different, exuberant that you might do. I've been rethinking about how to get my curriculum out, and now I'm going to be working with a younger woman, helping me to think about doing podcasts or getting on media and doing other ways of getting the information out, which has been a block for me. So let's just imagine, no judgment. It could be a small thing. It could be something that you want to do in your everyday life, or like it was, like for me, it was very hard to decide to call somebody to get together. And you might think, oh, it's my fear of rejection, or I'm not good enough, or whatever stops us. There's always something in there that kind of stops us. So imagine, no judgment, something that's bold, more exuberant, fun, maybe just fun. And now just imagine yourself doing that. That you're doing whatever that thing is that may, again, maybe a very small thing. In fact, it usually is. And you can just imagine yourself, oh, maybe I need help with that. Maybe I can do it all myself. Maybe I need somebody else to help me with that. Maybe I need to take a breath or do some other thing that would help me get ready for that. Well, let's just kind of take the leap. Okay. And then imagine how that might feel to you. Experiencing this new thing, this new way of doing something. How good it might feel to act differently, to be different, to think differently, to act differently, perhaps. How does that feel to you? How does it feel physically in your body? How does it feel emotionally? So what I'm going to encourage you to do is to use this process to think about any time you find yourself feeling stuck. And don't think about big things. Just mostly it's those small everyday things. Feeling stuck or blocked. What can I do? What's stopping me? What mental blocks? What ideas do I have that could be that I've kind of embedded that I have taken in that I don't realize that stop me? And then let's think about how I might move forward. What might I do? And then think about how that makes you feel as you take that step. Okay? And just take a moment to be with where you were with that. Maybe think about your thoughts about how you're going to move forward. And then just take your time to come back into this space. Be here with all of us. Be with yourself and